A few weeks ago, there was a post circulating on social media on Facebook about Emerald Coast Dragway, home of the Klutch Hickers Drift Paradise track and their $100,000 drift series being put up for sale. This track is now shut down after Klutch Hickers' final event of the season, a 3-day end-of-year bash. And there are no more events, whether they're drifting or drag racing, at Emerald Coast Dragway unless the track is sold to a new owner or somebody comes and leases the track and manages it. There's nobody there to run it. It's just been completely shut down. And if you've been on social media in the last 24 hours, it's December 7th, you'll have seen that Klutch Kickers will be hosting their $100,000 drift series for the 2022 season at the Freedom Factory, Cletus McFarland's Freedom Factory. I've had a lot of people ask me for my opinion on this because I'm the only A86 that's drifted there, I think, and I'm one of the lowest power drifters that's been to Klutch Kickers. People want to know my thoughts on moving to this other track because there's some potentially bad things, but also some potentially good things. So I figured I'd put all my thoughts in a video and y'all can listen to it at your heart's content. All right, so we're going to start with the bad. The biggest concern is the track is larger. And Klutch Kickers has a very open rule book. So the larger track coupled with the lack of, say, tire restrictions like tire cap, tire width cap, this may give the higher horsepower cars an advantage over the lower horsepower cars, right? So the pro cars could have this advantage over the grassroots cars. And it could lead to like a Formula Drift style event that doesn't have a licensing requirement to sign up. The bigger, faster track is a huge change from what Klutch Kickers had at Emerald Coast Dragway with the Drifter's Paradise layout. That track was an equalizer, meaning that higher horsepower cars and lower horsepower cars were kind of on level playing fields because it was still a tighter, smaller track. It had a very unique combination of tight and technical with the big American-style outer zones on a very small footprint. It was really cool with how diverse it was, and even though we had these large outer zones, it didn't necessarily give the higher power cars any kind of didn't give them too much of an advantage, right? So I was able to keep up with my buddy Brandon Wicknick and his 2JZ S13, which is that picture back there of me and him tanning together. And I was also able to keep up with Connor O'Sullivan and his LSS 14. Obviously a lot more power than what I have. I've got 250 horsepower and 200 foot-pounds of torque, and an LS, you're probably got at least 300 of both, right? So I was still able to keep up. Now, by moving to the Freedom Factory, many of the grassroots guys will be outmatched or could be outmatched even further than they already were by these pro-level cars and pro-level drivers. And because of that, this is where we get into some of the other bullet points like cost to drivers. So once you get into larger, faster courses, you end up going through more tires as a driver, so that means that it's going to increase your budget per event. Klutch Kickers is $400 and some odd to enter, or it has been. So you add that with your tire budget, right? So I went through 4 tires at Emerald Coast Dragway. That's amazing. I typically go through a lot more for an event. So 4 tires, and I had dozens of qualifying laps, or dozens of practice laps, plus the qualifying laps, plus the competition laps. I probably got 40 or so laps in. I only went through 4 tires, and they still had some meat left on them. That's really good tire wear. But when you get to these larger tracks, these higher power, or these faster tracks where you got big bank sweepers, it's really heavy on one side. So you're gonna go through tires a lot faster, you're building a lot more heat, so you have to bring more tires for an event. Now on the same point of budget, building a drift car that's capable of drifting at these higher speeds means, or these keeping up with pro level cars at these higher speeds means that you're gonna have to have more power. And more power means higher build cost. So, you get into it, like a lot of people were building cars specifically with Emerald Coast Dragway in mind. They weren't worried about these high power things. They're focused on other parts of their build. And it was able, because you're not focused on making a ridiculous amount of power, you're able to really build a competitive car on a pretty low budget. And by moving to the Freedom Factory, if they're using the big banks, it could be an issue, all right? I'm not saying it will be, but it could be, right? We're talking about the potentially bad things here. And a lot of these drivers who are building the car for Emerald Coast Dragway are now going, crap, what am I going to do now? Then that's at the Freedom Factory. I hadn't budgeted for needing all this extra power to keep up. And they don't know what to do. And I'm one of them. I don't know what to do. Also worth mentioning, it is an oval track. I like driving at oval tracks, but I know some people don't. And that's kind of one of the big talking points on the internet is like, oh, it's just another oval track drift series. Because there are a lot of those. There's a lot of oval tracks in the US, especially the East and the Southeast. So, take that for what it is. Now, the last thing I want to mention as a potentially bad thing is the live stream. So this is the first non-Cletus ran event at Freedom Factory. And typically all the other events ran by Cletus at the Freedom Factory have been a like pay-per-view kind of live stream setup. So I don't know if that's going to happen with Klutch Kickers. One of the best things for a grassroots guy at Klutch Kickers level is that the live stream is free to watch, okay? And you've got pro drivers who are sharing the live stream, right? So you've got more people watching it, plus all the pro sponsors that are sharing the live stream, the pro sponsors are watching. So you've got so many people with eyes on the sport that if you do well as a grassroots guy, it gives you the opportunity to pick up sponsors. You've got more publicity, right? Sponsors love publicity. That's what they're all about, making money. And if you're out there more often, that means that you can help them sell more parts. So with the typical pay-per-view kind of live stream that's been at the Freedom Factory, that might be an issue. Now, I don't know how the live stream is going to go here. It's just one thing that, came to my mind is if it's a pay-per-view kind of event, that means that the exposure for a grassroots guy is going to be relatively limited, and the audience for that is going to be much smaller. So I don't know. It's good for the track, right? It boosts revenue, boosts income, but it also kind of takes away from that grassroots publicity kind of stuff. So just something to think about. All right, enough of the negative Nancy stuff. Let's talk about the good things, right? So Cletus has done an excellent job supporting all kinds of motorsports, and it's really cool that when he was renovating the Freedom Factory, he did keep drifting in mind. A lot of tracks when they're renovating, they don't think about drifting because they don't care for drifting, but Cletus likes drifting, so that's cool, all right? So it's going to be awesome to have Klutch Kickers supported by Cletus, and it's going to help the sport and the track grow a bunch, as well as the series. And that's important, and I'll get to that in a minute. Another thing is that the track does have a big old skid pad in the middle. It has a big oval, has some smaller sweeper corners, so there is some diversity in the layout, or the potential for the layout. So yeah, it is an oval track. Yeah, it may be running higher vehicle speeds, but there is diversity at this oval track, so there's a potential for multiple layouts in a season that Klutch Kickers hasn't done before. So if they do that, that'd be pretty cool. Another good thing, for me anyway, I like high-speed drifting, okay? So this last year, I've been drifting with MB Drift at Rockingham Speedway with lots of, 70, 80 mile an hour entry speeds or layouts. We're able to carry that speed. So this will be really cool. A lot of the guys who have been drifting at the Emerald Coast Dragway or other similar sized grassroots layouts haven't had the experience at high-speed stuff. So Rockingham Speedway has kind of prepared me for these 70, 80 plus mile an hour drifts that we might get to do at the Freedom Factory. Another story for me, out of the line here. Klutch Kickers is doing everything they can to keep the series alive, right? It's not their fault that the Emerald Coast Dragway closed. It's really not. They did everything they could. Things happen. It's not their fault that they're moving to a new track, but it is exciting in a way that they are. When I drove at Klutch Kickers this season, I learned that they lose money on every single event. And it's not a small amount of money. They lose a pretty good amount of money. They have a decent financial backer for the time being anyway, that allows for the loss of money to continue hosting the events until they're profitable. For lack of a better word, we're going to call Klutch Kickers a startup, right? Most startups lose money at first, okay? And Klutch Kickers is a very ambitious startup, so it's going to lose money before it's profitable, but it's getting the attention it needs to build to be more profitable, and combining Klutch Kickers and the Freedom Factory could get it there to where it can build a profit so the events can grow even bigger, and then it can be a much larger series. And that's really what it's all about, right? So Klutch Kickers is doing so much to build the drift community, and if they're given the financial opportunity to be able to expand the series, that's awesome. I can kind of feel for them because, I've been a volunteer staff member with MB Drift for the last 2 years, and at the end of the 2020 season, our track closed, and we didn't know where we were going. And it's so stressful trying to find a new home, trying to find a new place to go host your events at, trying to find a new place to go drift at, that it's not fun. All right, it's not. There's so much stress involved. You know, you want to keep your drift community, you want to keep doing events because it's fun and it's good for people and it grows the sport. And then when you finally do, you know, get to a new track, you have to adjust for the new facility and what they want and what you want, and it's difficult. It is so much stressful. And on top of that, trying to turn a profit, they've already been losing money at a track that they've been established at. Now they're doing it all over again at a new track. So, you know, this going out there to all drifters, drivers, spectators, fans, please make sure to support your local events. Please make sure to support Klutch Kickers. You need to go out to all the events that you can to help support the drift events grow and help the community grow to keep drifting alive. Drifting is already facing an uphill battle and has always had an uphill battle with racetracks because they look at us as dirty drifters, all right? I've met with several tracks where they wanted nothing to do with us because they thought that we were just going to tear up the track. We were terrible for the track. We weren't going to maintain the facility. We were going to dump our trash everywhere and all this extra stuff. And we're not safe and yada yada, all this stuff, right? So it's already an uphill battle where you have drift events. Make sure to support them as much as you can, because without the support, the events go away. And if the events go away, then drifting dies. So, on that note, Klutch Kickers, I'm excited to see what you do at Freedom Factory. Obviously, there's some apprehensions, but I think I'll be there. I had planned on running there in the 2022 season. I don't know if I'll have the budget to afford to run a full season, but I think that'll kind of depend on tire wear and see what the track layouts are going to be. I'm excited and I am optimistic, acknowledging the hurdles that you have in front of you.